Welcome to another episode of Midweek Drum Hang. This week's episode will be with Kris Myers, who should be joining shortly. For those of you who are not aware of Kris Myers, he is the drummer for the jam rock band Umphrey's McGee. He's one of my favorite drummers. He's a big inspiration of why I got into the scene of music that I'm playing in the first place. Just used to go see him all the time, and over the years of playing in this scene, we've become close friends. And hopefully he'll be joining shortly. I don't know if he's done one of these before, so let's see if I can get him to join. I might have to come back and do this if he doesn't join shortly. If that is the case, then I'll do this entire introduction over again. But let's see if I can get him on here. Oh, here we go. I'm just waiting for Kris to join, but he is here. You should have an invite. So there we go. Hey, buddy.
Hey, what's up? Can you see me all right?
Yes, I see you just fine. How you doing?
Good.
Although now I see you sideways.
Sideways? Okay.
Yeah. It's very finicky. You have to there's only one specific way to do it out here.
Yeah.
So how you doing?
What's up,
Are you at home in your studio?
Yeah.
Nice.
This is it.
Super jealous. You've got
It's all around.
Yeah.
This is all it.
That is.
Yeah. It's my setup. Yeah, it's 3 years in the making, and I've been enjoying it. I've been getting a lot of mileage out of it during this time.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely catching some of those videos. It's pretty incredible to have a space like that and to just have everything fully set up, ready to go, whether it's doing video content or recording from home, even if it's just demoing stuff. To have that option is awesome.
Yeah, man, it's great. So, how are you?
I'm good. I mean, I say I'm good because I am good. It's obviously hard to say it sometimes with how things are out there in the world. It's definitely tough at times, just missing, playing music and seeing people and hanging out and all the things that we kind of can't do right now. But all of that aside, everything's great.
That's good to hear. Yeah, I feel like, you got to be creative with this time and, figure out what you can do to keep your mental health together just as much as your physical. Physical health I've been kind of, falling behind on, but mental health is important.
Yeah, 100%. I find the two for me are going together in the fact that my mental health and physical health are taken care of by me going hiking a lot more.
Yeah, that's good.
Being in the city right now, I'm in Philly, so it's a little tough just walking around the neighborhood. There's still just a lot of people around, plus it's just hot because you're in a concrete jungle and
totally.
And then people not wearing masks around and whatnot. I find that it's easier going in the woods to get away.
There's actually an issue with that there?
It's not so bad. I feel like cases went down significantly. They were kind of going up for a second again, but I think they're pretty level as far as compared to other spots in the country right now. But yeah, I mean, my building especially, I'm in an apartment, and there's definitely a lot of people not wearing masks in the common areas and going into elevators, and there'll be 8 people waiting to go in an elevator and no one's got a mask on. So
that's probably the worst case scenario.
Yeah, so it's pretty frustrating in that sense. But all in all, I try to just do whatever I can steer clear. Are you getting a weird feedback by chance or beeping?
Yeah, I am, but not on my phone. I hear it on your end.
Yeah, I know, but there's nothing here, so I'm wondering if it's a feedback of sorts from the audio, but
I'm not sure. I'm thinking maybe it might be I had it on a music stand. Maybe, I don't know. Let me see. I'll put it right back on. See. And then, can you hear that?
no, I don't hear it anymore. So I think we'll go with it and see how things are. How is it? You're in Nashville?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm in Bellevue in Nashville. It's a beautiful place. I'm so happy I moved here 3 years ago, three and a half years ago. Yeah.
You got
LA
everything you needed out of LA?
Yeah. I loved it there, but yeah, I think that this is better for me to be closer to family and certain friends of mine, and I think that it was another music industry option that I think was the right move. I feel like, of course, LA and New York are like, meccas for the major city, networks for industry, but it's just it's overcrowded, oversaturated, and in my opinion, and I'm looking for something new. And Nashville's not new; it's authentic, but it's still got some of the smaller town mentality still kind of there. But this is a city for the future that's going to keep growing and growing and become like a metropolis, just like any another big city. And it's good to get here now, before that growth and development happens. It's a really exciting time here.
Yeah, I was looking for a bit just because it's one of the, I mean, like you said, LA and New York are obviously huge for business, but you do have Nashville, which has its own thing going on, and then there are other spots, Chicago, obviously, and New Orleans and various spots. But really, like, Nashville's definitely one of those spots where not only is it Music City, but it's, as far as major cities goes, it's a lot cheaper, especially compared to LA and New York.
Yeah.
And you have your airport, and you're centrally located to a lot of easy flights just about anywhere.
Yeah, so, man, it's great. And, people are very super friendly here. I like that, coming from, it's LA's, California's cool and everything, and people are really nice, are cool there too, but it's a different kind of cool and nice. They're not as nice as people here, in my opinion, but I think people there are awesome and very loyal to their groups of subcultures in LA. And it's a very massively vast place, so it's like, you just got to have to keep up with the hustle there. Whereas here, it's a little more laid back, but yet there is still a significant amount of hustle here, for sure. I mean, depending on the industry you're in. And the industries are getting more diversified out here, more so, I think, than ever. It's not just, some touristy, place to go for bachelorette parties and, and for like country pop awards and things like that. It's got a lot more, to offer. Jeff Coffin, for one, is basically ambassador of the jazz community here, really helping to push things with the Wootens, the Wooten family, Oh. Okay, hello. You still there?
Yeah, I got you. It spun for a minute, but I got you.
Yeah.
The Woot
it's hard to figure out why. I think it's because so yeah, what I was saying is there's a certain amount of players here that you hook up with that are into more of the styles of music that I like to play with and associate with. But I'm still learning to be a kind of a studio musician in other realms and other arenas, like the country world. It's interesting, and this is a great place to be for that. But at the same time, I'm also just happy to live here, get like some flowers and some plants and do normal things, which I've had to do a lot now that I've been home longer than I've been home like ever.
Yeah.
I'm sure you know this.
Yeah, I mean, that was the thing, was moving into Philly was like just this idea of being close musically to a scene that I'm used to and a lot of musicians in the area, but to have a little bit more space than I did in New York. And also my touring schedule was slowing down, nothing super crazy. I was still touring a decent amount, but I wasn't out like 150 shows a year or anything anymore, where it was going to give me an opportunity to focus on other things. Because for a while I had a hard time figuring out the work-life balance and feeling like I always had to like go, go, go. Music is everything, that like that's all I can identify with. And it is one of the most important aspects of my life, but I had to remind myself that there are other things that make up who I am that isn't just music, and that I need to, you know, cater a lot of time for that as well, that was important. And one of the things was actually, even though it's still music related, was woodwork and building drums, which I started getting into here. But then when everything happened here, that wasn't possible. I couldn't go to the shop anymore. I couldn't meet up with my teacher, essentially, who was teaching me how to build drums.
That's cool. I didn't know that you were doing that. That's amazing.
Yeah, it was great. I was kind of working backwards. Like I started with like, he would give me shells that he had already drilled holes in for me to just like put the hardware on, and we'd kind of talk about various concepts. And then until he worked up enough courage for me to not destroy this drum and shell that he created, and to start doing and I didn't get to drilling just yet, but I did get to marking everything down to be drilled, and to make sure that your math and everything is spot on. Because once you drill that hole, if you do it wrong, you've destroyed a shell, which, you know, is not only the cost of the wood and the time that goes into that, but it's just, you know, these were like stave shells. So you take each little bracket of wood and you get, you know, whatever degree angle to link it all together. And then you shave away at it to make it a round cylindrical shape. And then from there you can drill the holes and do the bearing edges and the whole thing. So I was like just about getting there, and then all this happened. So I have some more relearning to do. But
that's cool.
But yeah, and I was getting ready to go back out on the road for a good tour, and just the excitement of everything. And obviously that was put on hold for all of us. I mean, what were your plans come March when all this kind of went down?
We were just in the middle of a West Coast run. We were finishing up Umphrey's, and we were on our way down to play San Diego on the 13th. And then LA on the 14th or something like that. And then that day we got informed that we were flying home for the guidelines. Everything was shut down and shows canceled, et cetera, et cetera. We've been just home ever since. And, you know, I think that's where we were just going to, you know, continue finishing just our duties with the shows. And then after that, come home for like the brief times that we have home, and then, you know, just get anything done and just get back on the road. So it's just another touring year for us when this happened. And now we're just kind of shell shocked, you know? So that, I mean, other than that, I just try to squeeze in like home projects. I have a publishing company that I'm still in the works of launching and announcing to the public about, for, you know, that entity for music licensing and stuff. And then
Awesome.
I do tracks for that. I do tracks for other people once in a while, you know, just things that I can handle, you know.
Yeah. Are you teaching as well?
Yeah, I started teaching a little late in the game in the during this whole Live Lessons Masters series. The announcements, when that happened, I did not jump on right away, but I've been doing that through them. And it's been probably about 2 months. I think I've been doing lessons for, and I'll probably start up again in September. This month got a little crazy busy, so I'm taking care of some home projects, replacing countertops and
Yeah.
like that, and
Real
trying to
adult
sound
stuff.
like I'm a repair guy, Yeah. And
Now's
then,
the time to learn.
yeah, the hard way, I suppose. It's something, I guess. But yeah, I'm just kind of doing that, and then September I'll teach a little bit here and there.
Awesome. Nice. So when did you, I mean, I know a little bit, obviously, just from seeing you play live now for the last like 15, 16 years. But like, when did you get into drumming? How did this all start? And you grew up, were you close to Chicago? I know it was Illinois, but like, were you a suburb Chicago kid?
Yeah, I grew up. I was born in Elmhurst, Illinois, which
Okay.
is directly west of the city, about 40 minutes or so. And I then lived and was raised in Palatine, Illinois. Actually, Inverness, which is a subdivision of Palatine. Palatine's up in the northwest regions, northwest suburbs. As you go up the Kennedy Expressway, you go up towards Arlington Heights, Hoffman Estates, and then further west is Barrington, and then you go to like Crystal Lake and everything else. It just continues and goes on and on until you go to the Wisconsin border. But yeah, I'm about an hour northwest of the city. I was living there,
Okay.
growing up in a regular suburban town. Kind of looked like a straight out of a John Hughes film, And yeah, it's kind of been my upbringing, and I was in an environment where the cool part about being in Palatine, Illinois at that time in the 80s and 90s was there was a great new drum store that that opened up in like around 87, maybe even before that, 86, 87, called the Drum Pad. And Jim Strike was the owner. He was my first teacher for lessons when I was age 11. And I went there to get lessons and learn how to read and transcriptions and drum notation, music notation, and practice drum fill exercises and groove exercises and snare drum exercises. It's the first time I ever really understood that, because I started at age 8 teaching myself by listening to the radio and playing along. But then when I started lessons, it was that store that really helped my development as a player. They were the staff there was super friendly and like super knowledgeable of everything that I needed to know about, even selling drums to the hardware involved, the components, what would work for this setup, that setup. They really know their stuff. And I was very, very lucky to be. And then they would do drum clinics with professional drummers, and I would see these things, these firsthand. And, this was great because not a lot of, cities provided a good drum store, So I had that as a big launch pad for me to get inspired to play at a young age. And yeah, I joined a band when I was with buddies of mine at like age 12, and we just started playing in the garage, in the basement, wherever they would let us.
Yeah.
And yeah, man, it's just, it was fun. And I mean, great memories and everything. And then I eventually played the Battle of the Bands. And then from there would play, auditorium shows in the high school we were at, which was Fremd High School. And then from there, I just kind of like, that was an interesting time too, because of course we're going from late 80s to early 90s. You were growing up listening to, like hard rock bands, totally inspired by Guns N' Roses, and, maybe even metal bands like Metallica or Iron Maiden, classic metal. And, then listen to Black Crowes or whatever. And maybe even some hair bands. And as far as hard rock, I was like Motley Crue growing up. I mean, I was into all those bands. Van Halen was a huge influence. And then came around 92 and everything changed when I first saw Smells Like Teen Spirit video on it might have been even on Headbangers Ball at that time, because they didn't really have a placement for it, because it was something that no one's ever heard of before, grunge music. And that once that hit, everything changed. And then I changed my style of music and started listening to all the more punk bands and more grunge and more, and even in Chicago, there was a whole industrial movement, as I'm sure you're aware of.
Yeah.
Electronic industrial music was huge in Chicago at that time, and I got way into it. So I kind of turned into a freak, or a gloom, as they called them in high school, or as shoegazer, as they would say in some or goth, goth kind of, touch to it. I don't know. I just kind of like picked up a lot of different influences and started playing in bands like that. Played in a punk ska band. It was like ska music was big at that time, ska core, and like Mighty Mighty Boss Tones or whatever.
Yeah, it was huge.
Yeah,
I really missed that time period. The other day, me and my fiance were watching Clueless, and it was like, and Mighty Mighty Boss Tones were in the movie, and it's just like that time period of even just a popular movie of the time. You would just have whatever the big band was, or if someone involved in making that film was a big fan of this band or that band, they'd end up in it. Like Real Big Fish ending up in basketball. And that whole time period of ska was huge. And same with punk rock. I was, definitely stemming from Nirvana, what was popular with grunge, got me into, NoFX and the whole movement that was going on there. And then ska bands like Save Ferris and various, of that time period. So I'm right with you in that. I'm a little bit younger, about 10 years younger than you, but all of that music from a very, very young age had a massive impact on me as well. So
cool. Yeah, you get it.
Yeah.
And I think that, that particular time to me was the most exciting and explosive time in my entire life in music, music culture. But yeah, so anyway, after all of that, the particular bands I played with throughout, we started playing music venues in Chicago and stuff when I was younger. Then I eventually got a scholarship. I did play music in school and continued to do jazz band and concert band, symphonic band, etc., marching band. And then I got a scholarship to Elmhurst College, back to where I was born. And I went there for undergrad and had been taught under the direction of Doug Beach, who's a Grammy Award-winning director and composer of jazz, and a great teacher and clinician. So I was very lucky to get him involved in my life. I was very grateful. He's probably one of the most, I'd say, important people that I ever worked with that taught me, one of the most important mentors I've ever had. He's kind of like a coach, and when you're in a jazz studies program, you learn that you have to be approaching everything, objectively with the music and all the knowledge and the classes you're taking and all that, and the pedagogy of the rehearsal techniques and things. And you're doing it at an intellectual level. You're learning about, like, on a curriculum-based situation. And that was around the time when finally schools were starting to accept jazz studies, because for many decades before that, it was basically outlawed from any school curriculum, because, people always related jazz to like 60s heroin, musicians like Miles, early Miles or whatever, like, et cetera, et cetera. But that just goes to show how far-fetched the mindset was. And they didn't realize that is a fine art and it needs to be accepted. And thank God, by the time I got the scholarship opportunity to go to a college, I was able to go into something that I was more geared and more fit for, which was jazz studies and drum set. And that was the hardest development for me. Literally playing big band jazz is probably the hardest thing I think you could ever do. Yeah, for sure. Keeping that groove going the entire time, following all the ties and all the accents hit by everyone else in the band. You're really keeping it all together. I haven't studied it in a really long time now at this point, but I remember it was definitely challenging, which is funny because some of the more like syncopated, crazy, linear drum things that you could do, nowadays they have a million books on it, and there's a lot that follows within like the gospel chops guidelines of things.
would be technically in that sort of way could be tougher, but following and guiding a swing band is definitely something that was really challenging at the time, especially at the speed as it gets faster and faster with some of those songs. Keeping that swing vibe is tough.
Yeah. You learn a lot about technique, and you learn a lot about teamwork, really, a team effort, an ensemble, and like a very large ensemble, mind you. So it teaches you as a drummer to learn how to be a leader with establishing the drive and the groove and the energy and the dynamics and the feel and the interpretation of that feel. And then you're also doing that whilst keeping the other guys in check with setting up drum figures and rhythmic figures for them. And drum fills have to be very clear and concise, no nonsense, no, super flashiness. You got to learn how to just lay down the most solid, most clear and concise fill. And that was a great learning experience for me. That teaches you how to, that pretty much separates the men from the boys, or women from the girls. For anybody who's learning to really become mature in their playing, you really learn to unlearn all the complicated shit, Even though it's great. Umphrey's has been a blessing in that we all get to be playful and play a little technical here and there. But there's a reason for it. It's not to just show off. And some people don't understand that. It's more about the spirit, the energy of really just playing your ass off, creating an array of sound. And it's a different thing. And you can get to that, but before that you have to learn how to play inside a little bit and more conservatively. And the jazz program helped me with that very much.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Now let's see. If you're in Philly, there's probably all kinds of great jazz for you to go see.
There is. I haven't been to. There's a club here called Time. That a lot of the Philly cats, jazz guys, and a lot of there's a big presence of drummers who go and eventually are in the touring group or do studio work, but in the touring group of a lot of hip hop, R&B, gospel bands.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of those cats go and play at Time. I have yet to go to a show there, but there's definitely a really big jazz community here. I know Marlon, who plays with Star Kitchen.
Oh, yeah.
He's from here, and he's within that scene of just getting your foot in the door. A lot of these guys might start in playing in gospel band and playing in their church, and then with Marlon going to college, and then just continuing that connection and their studies, and then when they come home, they've got this place to go play at, and
that's cool.
It's just cool that there's that society and vibe that I'm not a part of at all, but would be nice to just at least go check out. I'm not even necessarily it would be nice to play. Sometimes it's intimidating to see some of these cats who could really, really throw down.
Oh, for sure.
But everyone so far that I've met has also been super welcoming. So it's been pretty nice. I mean, I know Chicago has a major jazz scene as well. So
yeah, it was great to be able to be closer to the city. From Elmhurst, it was only a half hour out,
mm-hmm.
Or 40 minutes or so. And then when I was able to really go see on a weekly basis shows and other concerts, things going on, was when I continued my studies after undergrad and went into DePaul University for grad school, which was a great program for music and jazz studies, classical music, etc. And I really got locked into exactly what you said, communities of players going to jam sessions, but then also just going to see shows, right? That you have access to. And I moved into the city around that first year, 2000. And that really was an incredible experience. That was probably some of my favorite times in my life, living in the city. So yeah, then of course, Umphrey's came out after that, and the rest was history. Right after grad school, it just kind of, the opportunity came up,
Yeah. So how'd that happen?
Well, long time ago, it was 2002 in the fall. I just finished my master's at DePaul, and then was playing locally, doing, I spent about 8 years prior to Umphrey's playing weddings and jobbing gigs, putting on a tux, going in through the kitchen and the loading dock and everything else. And then from there, I was doing that continuously, and then playing some sessions, and then was playing with my old buddies, Kick the Cat, which is my fusion-based band, of which we've got some new releases coming out in the near future. Not sure when.
Awesome.
But anyway, I was doing all that, and then got a call from my music licensing partner, Brian Abraham, that he saw an ad for an audition for a great band called Umphrey's McGee. And he told me about it. And I was not even aware. I was not even aware of the band at that time. And I ended up reading about it and like listening to the music, and I really dug it. And I was like, this is very possible that I could try to maybe, audition, maybe that, I might have a chance. And I put my, some whatever bio and press kit I could put together last minute, and threw it in their mailbox, because the manager's P.O. box, or actually wasn't a P.O., it was his address, was not too far from where I was living. So I was just drove right over there. Turned out it was the first package they received of literally 100 drummers.
I remember that from the documentary and thinking, like,
what are the chances?
Yeah.
Serendipitous, So yeah, I guess, they were interested. And first meeting I had was with Andy, the percussionist, Andy Farrig, and I went over, and he was living with Vince in like a 3-flat or something at that time. And I went over there, we hung out. They were very, very welcoming and friendly and hospitable. And we talked about more and more things. And then they had me come over to do one more hang with all the guys. And Jake and Brennan were living in Wrigleyville at that time, right by the Wrigley Field on Addison. And I went to Jake's place, and he had a setup in his basement, all set up for recording. They went upstairs after we were hanging out. I learned a song, we played it. I think it was Hurt Bird Bath, and that's one of our songs. And then I ended up staying downstairs. They said, we have to go upstairs and discuss some things about, some business matters. Why don't you just keep playing? We'll come down. So I'm playing. Unbeknownst to me, they had a secret microphone on during that time, so they can just hear what I'm doing and messing around with. Who knows what I said or did? I hope it was okay. But it's pretty wild, man. And sure enough, they listened to it later, and they said, yeah, we just, we recorded you downstairs. It's like, oh, okay. And eventually they told me like 2 weeks later that they made their decision, and they asked me to join. And it was a real serious, it was a very serious discussion and decision to make, because I had never been in a touring act at that level before. So I had, it was going to pretty much take all of my time, and it was a commitment. I really had no idea what I was getting into, but I went for it, and made all the difference. And we've been continuing to play for consecutive years since then, without a break, and it's quite amazing where we've gone from this, and it makes me proud, and I think that's kind of how it began. So
I mean, as you should be super proud. I know for me, it started for me as being a big fan. I mean, I knew of jam bands for years and years, and especially Fish in the 90s was the first time I heard them, and then started seeing them and a bunch of other bands in the early 2000s. Mm-hmm. But it was really seeing you guys and the Benevento Russo duo that like changed a lot for me. And it became like my sole purpose in life was to play this kind of music, and as like a young kid, to see as much of this music and to be inspired by it as much as I possibly could. Which through you guys is how I found the Disco Biscuits, because for years I had heard of them, but I never really, it didn't click with me. It took a while, to be honest. But with you guys, and when Anchor Drops came out, it like clicked immediately that this was like the mix of everything, that I couldn't just place it. It fell into the jam band category because of the idea of improvisation, but it was really that it was like, there's electronic in this, there's jazz, there's progressive rock, there's metal. Like, it was just everything that I just loved about music and got super into it. And then it was really Rothbury 2009 that I met you and some of the other guys, and I started becoming friends with the Disco Biscuits guys. And it was like all these bands I was seeing just became friends. It was honestly like the most mind-blowing experience, and it was within a year after that that I started playing in the scene.
I remember that.
And
I was really stoked for it too. I thought that was awesome, and it was a great fit. I thought you were well deserved of doing something like that.
I appreciate it. Yeah, and when I joined Dopapod is when we got a closer, like, working together relationship and touring together more. But like, you guys were huge influences on us. Musically, for me, I know, big time, but as an organization and the idea that this is a business and how you should run things and treating your crew right and getting a solid crew together, and that longevity is the key here. You know, you don't want to just like blow out all your energy just playing all the time and not being able to be creative, and the fact that, you know, you do have people have families, and the whole concept of how you guys ran everything became extremely important and really inspiring, where like we were like, we're going to follow the Umphrey's model.
That's cool. Well, man, I'm grateful. Thanks, man. Shit. That's cool. I appreciate that. Yeah, we're kind of, you know, we're pretty amazed too about where this journey has taken us as well. And I think that, you know, I think the main thing is remembering to apply some quirkiness in your music and your compositions and not be afraid to do so. And I think that's what I think was kind of just one of our, you know, MOs, you know, was just to be something, you know, different from the rest. And, you know, there are pros and cons, but the mostly we're pros, and because, you know, we're able to answer to ourselves in a way, you know, and in terms of the industry goes, you kind of establish your own fan base, you know, and not have to worry about like the climate of the rest of the industry and what they're doing. If you're doing your own thing and you're actually succeeding at it, I'd say we are probably one of those few bands of many bands in this jam band subculture that started that. You know, we took, you know, what the Grassroots Network kind of laid out from the, you know, from the earlier stages of the jam scene, and we just kind of were in a position to just take one culture or subculture and then build it from there, and make it kind of a universe.
Yeah.
So that's cool, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I know that for you, and I know especially for Jake and the mentality that you're kind of speaking of, that like Zappa was a huge influence, and that always kind of stuck out to me. That concept of adding, you know, having fun with it, adding a little bit of humor into that, and not taking yourself too seriously.
Yeah.
While also taking the overall situation you take seriously. You take your craft, you take your music and what you're doing seriously. But like when you're in it playing musically and improvising, you know, you're able to have a little bit of fun and goof off a bit, if you will.
Of course. I mean, what else is, I mean, what other reason, you know, to do it for, you know? I mean, of course there are other reasons, but
yeah,
I agree with you, man. It's got to be there, you know? And you can't take yourself too seriously either as artists.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it just comes down to entertaining people and connecting with and catering to an audience and really, you know, embracing that. I learned that personally through even my experiences coming from working on music like jazz, classical music, contemporary music, avant-garde music, electronic music, and realizing, like that, they don't always teach you how to just simply make something simple enough to be embraced by a big culture of people that moves you and inspires you and brings back the energy to you on the stage, and that you feed off of that. I didn't know that enough when you're so like focused on studying, on how to reinvent the wheel sort of a mentality, as an artist. And I found that through Umphrey's, I was able to really learn how to change my view on why I play music. And it was to share it collectively with an audience, with a fan base. And I couldn't be happier, So yeah, I'm a spiritually wealthy man with that situation. And I'm glad it happened, because I see a lot of, and I'm sure you too, in Philly and New York and some of the bigger cities, you see some of the most brilliant, amazing musicians just down the street play like world class, but he's making $50 that night, or maybe less, and he's trying to support himself or herself month to month. And it's really sad to watch, like, true artists suffer like that. But I think there's a time and place where you kind of have to learn how to balance things and give and take some of the art for the sake of entertaining people more and making it less, manic, or less, whatever the word is, a little more fun and entertaining. And we have Ryan Stasek, luckily, to help us with that. So that helps us.
You do. That you do. Yeah, I mean, it definitely shows. I mean, you guys have no problem saying yes musically to a lot of things, and I mean that in like the best way possible. And I mean, it goes to show, and the opportunities that you get from that. Not only being able to say yes to whatever genre and whatever you're feeling, to be able to express yourself and not just put yourself as like one-trick ponies,
Yeah.
but also, to be able to work with so many people. I mean, the first time I saw you guys was at the Jammies, and you guys, the first time you played, I believe it was the first time you played with Huey Lewis.
Huey, yeah, I remember that.
And having those kinds of opportunities, which that show really was the show that like changed my life. Like seeing you guys doing that, seeing John Mayer and Buddy Guy and Phil Lesh.
Questlove. Questlove was the drummer in that band.
Yeah, and Questlove on drums, exactly.
Yeah.
All of that
Bruce
was
Hornsby
awesome.
on keys. It was amazing.
Yeah, it was just like non-stop. Everything about that evening was just incredible. And even though it was only getting to see about, 20 or whatever it was, minutes of, each kind of group, it definitely stuck with me. And it, changed my life as far as the music that I started to see live. It was no longer just like I was a big punk rock ska fan and I loved 311 and Incubus through that whole time period of late 90s, early 2000s music that I was going to see. Now it was like, I'm going to go see all of these bands where the show is constantly different. I don't have to worry about just seeing the same set list, because after a while, like seeing 311 however many times that I did, I knew that they were going to play 23 songs, and I knew that 17 of them had to be these 17 songs, because they're kind of like a legacy act in a sense, where people are going to see that music and they have to play that music, and then they pepper in a couple of other things. Whereas now it was like, oh, you can go see this band and they're going to play a different set list every time. And even if they play a song that they played the last time you saw them, it's going to be done completely differently. And you guys do that in such a unique, amazing way. I know, like, there's a lot. I'm sure the evolution of how, having the talkback system situation that you guys have is like major game changer. That was a huge influence for, I know, me and Dopapod when I was playing with them, but just a lot of bands in that concept of like, we're still going to improvise, but let's try and figure out a way to be a little more controlled about it in a sense, and, take that art form to a completely new level. something that a lot of people haven't done before. And it's really awesome. So
agreed.
Kudos to you guys and everything that it takes you to from, I mean, what is it like? What is this an experience like going to Abbey Road like for you guys when, some of your favorite musicians have recorded there, including obviously the Beatles?
Yeah, man, that was like a dream. Like, is this really real? Is this really happening? Like we were there, long drive, long flight, over the pond, and basically getting there and just scrambling through London to get to that particular area at Abbey Road Studios, and even driving right up to it, and you recognize the front entrance and everything. You're like, oh my God, that's it. And we're like walking in, and we're in the I believe it was the B room, the famous room. It looks like it's the size of like a junior high school basketball auditorium, or a basketball gym, and it's got the high ceilings. They got the old panels that are on wheels for vocal booths, and everything is still left almost untouched as if it was the same as it was in the 60s and 70s. And they still use the studio to this day, of course, if you can afford. What's amazing about that studio is almost anyone who, maybe not anyone, but like people who are, you don't have to, it's not so exclusive. If you're just paying for the day rate there, they will consider it.
Yeah.
I think from my understanding. And I mean, they consider us. So, that's pretty amazing. But yeah, I think that we went in and we just had such a great time. Everything clicked. We came in, we were prepared. We played probably 11 or so songs, maybe 12.
I mean, you got to be prepared. You're paying for Abbey Road. You don't want to waste any time.
Yep. And man, we went in and I don't know how we did it, but we just kept playing throughout 12 songs, over and over, like one song to the next, and we just did not stop. We were so floored and elated being there. We lost track of time. We just kept playing and playing, and played great takes. I thought for a band, I thought everyone really brought their A game, and it was just really, everything went off with a hitch. It was such a fun experience. Yeah, probably one of my favorite experiences in my career. Yeah.
I mean, I can only imagine. I'm sure it's hard to top. I'm sure down the road you guys have a very long, successful career ahead of you guys still. So who knows? But no matter what you do, that's still going to be pretty hard to beat.
I agree. It's one to check off the list. But yeah, I mean, I think we've done these things, once in a while in the studio. And I think the whole studio game as a band was really something that I think we excelled in as well, but probably didn't get as much credit because most jam bands, don't have as much traction or get a lot of the credit maybe they deserve, in the studio world. I don't know. That's according to the Recording Academy, or
Yeah.
But not, that's just on an industry standard. I understand that like there are these preconceived notions about certain genres. One thing I just think is that people still have yet to understand what's really great about the players in the jam culture, even when they choose to improvise and open and stretch things, they still know how to play the studio animal and do it very well.
Yeah.
And I thought we were really good, are really good at that in the studio and working together. I mean, for one, Jake is really a good music director with studio ideas and as a bandmate, because he has a great studio of his own, and he understands the old school ways of recording with analog and analog type devices and like the board and everything else is very much analog in his world, and he's like an encyclopedia of music. He's like a musicologist for rock and roll. He knows so much about vinyl, it's ridiculous. And so when it comes to working with guys in the band that have certain certain talents in that world, like then that really helps in the studio world, And I went in because I personally wanted to be a studio musician to begin with when I got out of college. But at that right around that time, which was the late 90s, technology was changing and replacing drummers. So people were getting less session work, like the old school guys. And, that made a huge difference in me, the odds were stacked against me a little more and even getting a chance of being a studio musician, because that era was possibly over. Unless you were like, the elite of the elite, or you knew somebody, and I had to think of other options. So touring became the focus, and that's where Umphrey's jumps. We were just at that right time, and then, of course, the Napster thing that happened in 2000 changed everything too. So people were not buying albums from that point on as much.
Yeah.
And so you were learning how to deal with that. So we've been through a rough run, like as a generation. But you have to just be creative, and the jam scene has provided that, which I'm so grateful for.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's what's tough about right now, is that over the last 20 years, that shift in now, like, touring and merchandising is like key in survival. Mm-hmm. And now we're in a time period where it's like, you can still sell merch, but it's usually backed by a tour or an album or something to promote off of. And it's just really tough right now, except for the people that are lucky enough to be able to still go into the studio and work hard and do the various things that you can still do. But it's not the same as, going and playing a 2,500 to 5,000, whatever it is, person venue. Red Rocks that you guys do 3 days, that's just under 10,000 people, Yeah. It's, it's hard to find things that are going to replace that, but creativity, will prevail in those kinds of situations. And you kind of just have to do what you got to do. I mean, even the studio session situation, the only reason the 5-string bass exists is because bassists were losing their jobs to keyboardists.
Oh, really?
Yeah, at least that's my understanding of it, is that they couldn't hit those low notes and or as wide of a range, so they added a lower string to it.
Huh. That's cool. That's interesting. Yeah, man. It's you just gotta make lemonade, I guess. Work out, work with the environment, work with what you have, and
exactly.
And I think the key thing too is to be successful. From my perspective, is I've noticed bands who just trust each other no matter what, through all the hardships. Trust is a very difficult thing, and believe me, I've been very imperfect with that. And anyone else can probably say the same thing in different ways. You learn how to trust each other musically and spiritually, and accept each other as individuals, all the while keeping a team ethos together. I learned so much of that through Umphrey's and Umphrey's only. So I think that a lot of our successes come from getting over ourselves and whatever our personal bouts are in life, and just bringing it back to the team, and bringing it back to the common goal, and to do it with passion and extreme drive. Yeah, it's funny. My screen keeps getting darker, and then
I think they might have changed the setting, because this is like my 10th one of these, and I never have to tap the screen every once in a while to bring the light back. So they might have changed it.
Or we're just drummers.
I have a weird setting on my
user error.
Yeah.
Typical drummers.
But I appreciate you so much for doing this. Besides being a great friend over the years, you've been a huge influence to me, and I know many, many people. Your skills as a drummer is talked about a lot within our little world, and I know beyond. So.
Oh, well, that's very kind of you, man. Thank you. I appreciate it, and likewise, you are no slouch either, Scott. Yeah, in fact, I've learned a lot from you over the years, and I thank you for that. Like, you've taught me a lot about, even like your experiences in your career positions and also as a player, and about music styles. You taught me a lot about electronic music. You introduced me to KJ Saka, which I'm very, very grateful for. He's one of the baddest, most wicked musicians and people I've ever met. He's so cool.
Yeah, he's
And I know what he's doing now. Probably building a rocket ship or some shit. I don't know.
He's doing something similar to you. He's got an amazing little space in his house, so he can work within his house, and he's just like putting out as much content and focusing on as much as he possibly can now to not be, it's hard right now to be just like kind of down about the situation, which can cause you to be kind of lazy. But if you have that opportunity to go and just continue working, putting out content, whether it's videos or doing session work or working on publishing, royalty music, whatever you can do right now is what is important, and to realize that this too shall pass, and to kind of just focus on whatever you can and try and better yourself, even if it's not musically. Now's a great time to do the thing that you always wish you could do, but you never had the time to do. So.
You're here. Amen to that.
Yeah. Well, do you have anything going on you want to talk about while we got some people here? And I put these on YouTube after as well. So anyone on here, subscribe at my YouTube page. But
Yeah, I know I will. I mean, I think I'm working on a ton of projects right now that I'm not sure when the actual launching of it will happen, but I could tell you that Kick the Cat's one of them. I've reunited with my old homies and my old mentors, and we're gonna come out with a ferocious new album next year, sometime, or possibly late this year. But it's bringing me back to the fusion jazz realm, but we're kind of creating a new palette for it, for ourselves and for people, hopefully, that has still been with us over these years. I'm working on that. Got a couple other random projects. I'm continuing to add music to the tracks to the library for Goodnight Nurse Music, which is my publishing company. Goodnight Nurse Music is what that is, if you want to go on the website or whatever. You can also keep up with things on what's going on with me. KrisMyersDrums.com. I have a website. But yeah, that's it really. And then I'm doing some charity work. I'm working on this charity called the Miraculous Love Kids. I've been doing since I lived in LA, and I've played with an all-star cast of musicians, celebrities, actually the Full House cast.
Wow.
Dave, and then I end up playing on a children's audiobook for Dave Coulier as a result, which is one of my favorite, milestones in my career. So no, it's just fun.
Amazing.
This crazy industry we're in. But that and like a bunch of other rockers are on that, and we're about to do some releases with some heavy players, of which you will see later. But Miraculous Love Kids is a building organization helping children in impoverished nations and providing money for and support for the kids mainly, to also provide guitars and purchase guitars for them. And then Lanny Cordella, who is he's basically the founder of it. He goes there to those nations and those cities, and he teaches these young kids how to play. He's gone in some really dangerous war zones. I mean, he goes to Kabul and Afghanistan for the last 5-10 years, maybe longer, teaching young kids to play and giving them some kind of inspiration, which I think is absolutely admirable and it's extraordinary. I mean, that's the kind of charity that I like to get behind. So, and then I'm doing some stuff for By the Hand organization in Chicago. I'm just trying to do something to add, to give back, because this time is a good time to reflect on that during the pandemic, and get out of the congestion and all the confusion and all the warfare going on the anti-social media right now.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I don't want to cut you off, but this thing's about to end in 20 seconds, so I want to thank you again. I'll put all these links up when I post this on YouTube. So just send
Sounds
that
good.
my way. But thank you again, buddy. I appreciate it, and I'll talk to you soon.
Take care, Scott. Thank you
All right.
very much.
Peace.